Horsemanship Remark Show. It's the week before Thanksgiving. Um, it's November 2025. I did send Michael his little invitation. I'm trying to refrain from putting my phone up here. I'm excited to hear what he has to say this morning. I had the worst dreams, you guys, that I was that I was so late for the show. I couldn't get to the show. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Oh my gosh, I was traumatized. So, one thing at the top of the show I have to say here is that I had the best experience yesterday with California Trace. They are I guess a trace mineral slash uh, um, amino acid supplement from um, gosh, let's see, from California. And I needed a little bit of help balancing my horse's hay that I switched to. And so I ordered the product from them. And then right away, a gal named Jennifer called me and helped me sort out exactly what I need and the best way to do it. So I was super duper proud. It was great. Here's Michael, of course. It'd be so nice if this ended up not. There we go. Anyway, I will report back after I get those, but I just wanted to give a shout out to California Trace. I think it's californiatrace.com. So, Jennifer, tell her you heard about them from the Horsemanship Remark Show. Good morning, Julie. Oh my gosh, I still have yet to hear your story. And Susan, I was thinking about you as I put my snow pants on yesterday. I was like, it is definitely snow pants time. Michael Sparling, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. And you?
Good. Did you see the little clip?
I did.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It'll be fun, I think. I've had that holstered for a little while. So if you guys didn't see my little Instagram story this morning, I have a video of Gary Bailey teaching Remy, my little Arab, to come into the loop. So it's kind of the beginning. I mean, the horse learned it in like 15, 20 minutes, but it's the beginning of, being able to shake out a loop and have the horse come right into it. And you know what I was thinking, Michael, because I was helping somebody else just with a young horse that's going really nicely, but she's a little bit unconfident coming straight on, so she gets the ears and it can look like super naughty, but I
Hmm.
think it is. And you know how like that is such a huge thing for horses. And anyway, they were kind of stepping to the side, like as they were drawing the horse from right to straight on to then go left. They were stepping to the right, and I was like, I don't think I would do that. And so then watching that clip this morning, I was like, yeah, see, the thing is, it's like it's drawing the horse like straight, straight, straight. So anyway, that'll be fun.
That might be an interesting discussion and an interesting thing to experiment with because watching that video, actually, the thing that came to mind um, was a little bit different than straight on in terms of approaching. I've been in numerous situations having folks do the hooking on exercise that Buck started doing, which I know at one point you're like, I'm not sure how fruitful I feel like that is in terms of the overall system. Um, but have used it, encouraged people, showed people kind of how to accomplish that to great effect um, in various situations and circumstances that I think
To great effect. Like, what does that mean?
that it works really well
But works for what is all I'm saying.
to have them hook on and stay connected and seek you out, look you up when they might just kind of come in and drift off
Mm-hmm.
or be a little shy about
Mm-hmm.
coming in and connecting or maybe have the habit of I come in and I kind of hide under your shoulder. That's pretty common. Um, or just being pretty distractible where they're with you. If you lead them off, they're kind of like they'll fall right in behind you. They don't drag, they lead up reasonably well. Um, they're maybe even hooked on enough that if they're out on the circle and you know, step back, they will like they're right away there, but they don't come in straight on that laser. I guess the reason I'd say would be opportunity for experimenting is kind of going back and forth between the two. Any case, I've been using that a lot, um, mostly with helping people to find that with their horse. I don't know that I use it that much myself, um, because I don't come into that situation as frequently. But
It's not there, Julie. I just sent the 30-second clip to Michael. You guys that are horsemanship insiders will get it this
oh,
weekend. Yeah, it's there's no real sorry.
oh,
I I
I
might
thought
put
you mentioned a reel. I was thinking the same as Julie that you'd posted it somewhere.
I posted that I sorry. I mentioned it in my story.
Got it.
But and maybe I can put the 30-second clip up today at Horsemanship Insider on the community wall. But I didn't it's not gonna go as a public reel. I'm so over that. Just so you know. Right now. I almost messaged you like 4 times this week, like, Michael, I don't know if I can keep it together.
Mm, I wouldn't have the time to support you this week, so I'm glad you
I didn't want
sought sought solace elsewhere. Um,
to flip
so
through.
anyway, I mean, it's interesting that you know because I'm completely with you when you're hooking the horse on and wanting them to draw in a laser. You have to give them the opportunity to come straight on rather than kind of hooking around in an arc and maybe trying to influence it and squeak it out of there by moving the hindquarters a little bit. Like that's just not the thing. If anything, kind of do like what did, different different position relative to the horse and different, you know, in other words, his back, I believe, was to the horse and he was inviting them up into the rope as opposed to maybe backing up and having them come straight
Yeah.
in. This case, it was straight into the loop. But if the horse didn't kind of find it, he changed his angle and just slightly and gave the horse another straight on approach. There wasn't like a hooking around, kind of hoping they keep flowing and find it. And that's pretty important when you're hooking the horse on, wanting them to come in straight, that you are a target to find. And then you can always change that angle and say, come find me again, but not to have it be a kind of come find me over here as I scoot around in an arc.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just interesting that the ties together and how they can interplay. Um, because I will, after you're having sent that to me, and my initial response is that's not too dissimilar from it's completely dissimilar, but it's working toward the same thing as the hooking on coming in straight as the hooking on exercise as Buck's been doing it in recent years, in that you're going, come find me. But in that case, he's saying, don't come forward. And it's completely different in that sense. So,
Yeah, they all it's interesting because it all works together and it's not like and it makes me your comments make me not want to post that 30-second clip for anybody because someone's going to watch that and be like this is how you do it, which I am also irritated by lately, by the way. Um
well, but that's
I
anytime you learn anything and you don't have the whole system and it's not as nuanced as you'd like it to be. You teach a clinic, you don't post anything for anyone to reference back for years to come. You teach a clinic and something really resonates with someone, they see a result, they feel a result, and like yesterday, last night, I did a little mini clinic thing at a farm locally here, and I was just like, just know this is not the goal. Like, this is the first couple steps. I had about an hour with each of you to give you a taste. And one gal's like, "So what should we do going home?" I said, "Well, don't do that and pound on that. Like, yes, incorporate that, but we need to get a lot more going before you're like, this is the thing to do with my horse." But I mean, that's kind of natural when you're trying to figure this out to like, oh, that's what I should try. That's what I should do. And you kind of lock in on that, especially if you've kind of like, oh, okay, I see that kind of working. And then you get kind of fixated on it. So that's normal. Give people some grace for God's sake.
Look, I should have a cattle prod these days. Seriously. Or a zapper or something where you guys can be like, stop being such a turd. Good morning, Corey. Good morning, Jeannie.
Mm, I might get one before you get here in February.
Hopefully by February I'll be cured. Usually it doesn't
Mm,
last too long.
yeah.
Yeah, it's that whole thing is an interesting thing. The hooking on the way Buck does it is just interesting because
Well, let's say it this way, the way Buck does it in that exercise, because Buck will hook on in the round corral completely,
yes,
the
yes,
way we talk about otherwise, where it's drawing straight in. So,
yes, yes, 100%. Yeah. So it's interesting, and I was thinking about flour on the clock. That where somebody calls it the clock. I don't remember. There's so many people that are like the ads that I get for people's horsemanship programs is like on steroids. Anyway, whatever. Somebody calls it a clock because I heard it from a different person. And like Flower, the thing is she can keep herself giant ears hooked on, but then she's hiding her hiney. You know.
mhm.
So
Well,
it's
that's what's interesting too, eh, in the hooking on exercise, as Buck has, outlined for folks to work at it, is he explicitly says, "Don't worry about what the feet are doing.
mm,
Have them hook on." But if you watch how it shapes up with his horses, even if he starts with, "I'm not too concerned with what your feet are doing as long as you're hooking on." Well, first of all, if they're not walking forward, they can't keep hiding their honey because there's going to be a forward step towards you eventually. Otherwise, they're in a pretzel with their front legs, which they're not going to do.
if they keep walking towards you.
Well, if they keep hiding their hiney, using the hindquarters, stepping forward and through to hook on that way to stay connected to you.
Well, they could be doing a backing circle, which is what usually happens, which is great.
Well, yes. What ends up happening with, if you watch him do it, most of the time the horses are actually doing a four-quarter yield, kind of turning around, hooking on. And I've found in messing with this and having other people play with it, I've, generally to demonstrate it, had to, because it's a little bit of an awkward angle and not something most people have seen before, anything akin to it, had to demonstrate it. So then I get, ample opportunity to mess with a whole slew of horses that are not hooking on for various reasons. And you kind of find that the step, generally speaking, that gets them to find you is a reach of the front end. That is a four-quarter step. It's not a backing arc step, generally speaking. The one that's like, boom, there they are. And also very important in there, if you're playing with that, is to release when it's about to happen. It's super critical right there, as it is everywhere. But if you don't release as it's about to happen there, you take them right past you and they think swinging one way and then the other is the goal. So you have to be ready to receive it as it's showing up. And I'll say, just don't obsess over the feet, right? Because we're not necessarily trying to maneuver the feet in such a way. We're just trying to get their mind. But if they go to reach that front foot, that's a good chance it's going to bring them right into line with you. And you got to be ready to go, there you are.
So, are you having people take a step backwards?
Nope.
Interesting. I would have to see
I mean,
it.
I don't see why you couldn't at that point.
Or good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but the idea being,
How is it working then with the horse? I mean, are the front feet just going up and down as the inside hind leg is coming forward, or how are you accommodating a forward step of the inside hind leg?
well, if they are yielding the hindquarters, or as you described with flowers, sometimes it's more a little bit of I'm going to scoop my hindquarters around and kind of hide my hindquarters in order to stay with you, which I also think is very common of a wild horse. They learn that it's safe for you to be in front, and it's easier to. What falls out first is a hindquarter yield rather than them yielding their forequarters to stick with you or backing up. Both of those being a little bit more vulnerable. A hindquarter yield being or more yieldy in a sense of, I don't know, it's generally pretty meaningful for a horse to step the front end over either away from you or toward you than it is for them to step the hindquarters away, because it can be evasive, particularly with a wild horse or mule. I'm kind of just rattling here. But when when they do really hook on, again, not obsessing about the feet, I find that it's generally a four-quarter step, which, of course, if it's if it's longer, they might just fall into the hindquarters backing. Because again, you're saying, don't approach me in this, just stay hooked on. You'll end up with a four-quarter yield where the inside hind is sliding back.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's when they're really, really hooked on, generally it kind of comes together that way without even saying, okay, this is the movement I want you to do in order to hook on. It just shapes up that way.
And so,
At the same time, it could be backing an arc, right? Particularly if you're really emphasizing don't come forward, they can get the idea of, oh, maybe I'm supposed to actually back up, and then it becomes a backing arc to hook on. But I think you can kind of shape that too by slightly adjusting your angle or the degree to which you're stepping in, that you can elicit one versus the other. And I suppose as I'm doing it, I am kind of encouraging or positioning myself such that yeah, I guess I'm encouraging hook onto me by making a four-quarter reach. So maybe that's not what falls out of there. That's what I'm kind of sort of passively or casually causing to fall out of there because of the way I feel it works best. I don't know.
yeah, well, I would agree. I think that probably the freedom of the shoulders, the freedom of the front feet, and the combination of like stay back,
Hmm.
but stay hooked on.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose, the danger of, or when it's not working, it's just the head snapping that way, and then
Because
and then it just won't ever feel good. But when it's about to line
it's
up,
not going to stay.
hmm hmm when it's about to line up.
So then, to the point of you don't want it to get to where, oh, this is the thing to do, right? And this is how you do it. And you know, this is the thing, right? I was helping a gal with a horse yesterday that it would have been the worst thing in the world to try to get this horse to hook on. And there it all was hindquarters. It all was, you know, it wasn't even really hook on. It was flow and then flow forward. It was forward and through and out and around, forward and through and forward and around, just back and forth because everything this horse did was thinking up. And she, young, thoroughbred, beautiful, beautiful mare, 3 years old, super light, and just she wasn't going forward super freely overall. I mean, it was a lot of time spent just thinking up, thinking up. But when she did, I mean, it was just buoyant and just pretty spectacular, but smaller, not like big, warm, bloody, bouncy. Um, any
Not
case, I really liked her. I told. Kelly, like if I had a horse that I was willing to trade, I would completely trade you for this horse. Can't take another horse, nor does she want to, get rid of this mare, even though she's proving a challenge at this point. Um, in any case, what was I saying? Oh, so it was just time and time again. I was saying I do not want to give her any idea that backing up is what we're after. Um, over and over and over. It's forward and through. The answer to everything is forward. And then very carefully, once that was flowing easily, then I turned it into a 4/4 yield and was very patient to just let her find it rather than putting too much pressure on to where she felt like she had to go back. But at that point, the hindquarters were free going forward and thus more loose in order to go back because she wasn't just kind of binding them up and going up, which was her response, whether you asked her to back up or asked her to flow forward. It was kind of this, it was a really cool, like she was working at it and kind of intimidated by the horse and kept like jerking back out of self defense, right? Because this horse is pretty dramatic, sometimes with the hind legs, sometimes just like literally standing up and flying her legs in the air, like very vertical through the hind leg and all the way up to the tip of her nose. So, rightly so, Kelly's like, I want to stay alive here. So I was just itching to take the horse, but I didn't ask. And then at one point, she was clearly like, "Can you bail me out here?" And I was like, "Yes." And I had so much fun. It was super cool. But
That's awesome.
in any case, it's not a one for all, hook them on, have them back up. And in this case too, it wasn't hook on and draw straight into me because that was not there wasn't room enough to just keep flowing. Like she had to flow first before I would even have her try to hook on and come toward me. Because at some point when they hook on and come toward you, you stop and they're there to come up to you. And at that point, even if it wasn't an abrupt stop, initially anyway, that could be a, okay, there's nowhere to go forward anymore. I go up. So
Mhm.
the other interesting thing is she had started doing this, but she didn't do it near as much with Kelly. And by Kelly's description of, the day and week before, she kind of started doing it, but wasn't doing it that much. But she was left and right and all over the place with me because I was doing all the things that pissed her off. They were kind of being a little careful with the flag because that was eliciting reactions. And she was intimidating their responses with the rearing or the kicking out. And so I'm just like, well, the flag's gonna move around. And she's like, that pisses me off, and this is what I think is gonna get you to shut up. And so it was just like over and over. She goes, well, maybe the answer's up. It was fun. I'm just gonna keep talking about it because I had a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I told everybody this morning that I want to hear from you since I talked the entire last week.
You did.
I know. Sorry.
It's funny. Once a while ago, my brother-in-law watched the show, and he has nothing to do with horses. He's a finance guy. Um, but he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like you just sit there and listen to her the whole time. I'm like, well, that was one show you watched, and there are times where she just goes and goes. Last week was one of those, but
So
so
embarrassing.
I don't know. Whatever.
Sometimes it takes that long to get it out. So anyway,
Yeah,
my point being, continue to talk. I am not unaware. There's that. I am
yeah.
not unaware.
Nor am I, and nor does it bother me. I thought it was funny that he pointed it out. And that's where, like, folks catching the podcast, like, they better be ready for this to be a little different because I don't know of too many. Not that I listen to a lot of podcasts on horsemanship, but it's a little bit, in my mind, unusual for a podcast to just be completely free form like we do. There's usually some sort of intended line to it, a topic laid out beforehand, it seems. But that probably just betrays my not
No.
having listened to a lot of podcasts or watched a lot of podcasts.
Oh, it just makes me think how unsuitable for the public I really am. More so all the time.
Yeah, like, as I'm thinking about it, there are a few that I like, they just talk to talk, kinda like we do. Just none of it matters. We're just blabbing.
Well, but I'm in.
Hanging out, having conversation, like, there are some.
It's very. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in a super interesting place with all of it. So just back to what you were saying though, um,
Mhm,
I think one of the things that I found myself saying recently is, look, the horse has 4 feet. You got to think that it's all 4 feet, and uh, while it's like, let's be able to influence 1 foot at a time, yes, but also you're kind of influencing all 4 feet at the same time, because how else could they move 1 foot at a time? So that's where I get irritated right now, is just because I'm in that place where I'm getting to just let it float together, and so then it irritates me to talk about anything specific, and
mhm.
that just speaks to how fragile my awareness is right now, because I don't want anyone to distract me by
Well,
forcing.
I think the tie together, and this is probably where you're like, yeah, but like just let it happen." The tie together between the foot, the reach, the whatever is that's how they start to flow, because
Mhm.
they have to move the other 4 feet
That's right.
themselves.
That's right.
So, I mean, with this mare, yesterday, I was like, "You have to every time that hind leg goes forward and through, and you're stepping toward the hind end, every time she sends herself forward onto a forward and around circle, she gets united. The first step, you go, there you go, and recognize it, and then she's going to do the rest from there. And to a degree, I believe what you're describing is letting them find all that on their own. Just you going, yeah, feel around for it, not having to necessarily mark things as much because it's you're in a spot where, from what you described last week, you're not really even super clear on what you're wanting to happen. You're wanting to be on that, what was the word that I think Corey came up with? Um, exploring
Yeah.
rather than experimenting. You're just allowing the horse to explore and you're kind of feeling what's shaping up, but you're not
There's an
perhaps at this point saying, do this and then let's see what shapes up. It's more of a kind of right off the bat, let's see what shapes up, which works if your horse is hooked on and searching. Right.
Yeah. And I think there's just periods of time, I'm sure all of you guys have had this. I would just guarantee it's not just me at all, but there's times when like you can kind of hear things that you couldn't hear before, you know?
Hmm.
Little bit what it is, the closest I can describe is like just listening maybe to a symphony where all of a sudden you can hear an instrument that you couldn't hear before. You just want to hear that line or something like that, and then someone wants to talk to you, or just regular stuff, who knows, and you're like, shh, quiet, you know. And that's
Or far less sophisticated than a symphony, like you get an earworm on a song and you just want to listen to it constantly.
fuck.
Like it's like, oh, I want to feel that. I want like the experience that that gives me. Like I don't know for everyone, probably for a good number of people, like it just moves you, and you're just like, I dig this. Whatever it is, I'm not even going to try to understand it, but it's like, don't tell me I'm listening to the song too much because I don't care. I just really like this song right now. Which I thought about sending you a song this morning. Didn't have time, but
Oh, those
I,
earworms.
I don't even remember the name of the artist or the name of the song, but off
You
the top of my head.
you have good. You're definitely the closest one to identifying what I would like. Have you noticed in movies and TV shows that they are picking? like 4 bars out of a song, a super popular earworm, and they're not using the whole 8 bars even.
I have not noticed that.
Oh
If
man.
I watched movies or shows, I would notice that, but
Oh man. Yeah. Kip and I are watching From right now.
from
Long time since I've been interested enough in a show to pay attention for extended periods of time. So
haven't heard of that one.
it's good. It's really good. But they were playing Hallelujah, da 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 da, over and over again. In the, I'm like, you guys are so, and to the point where this. So if any of you guys watch From, report back. It seems to me that Chat probably wrote it. I feel bad if whoever wrote it. I'm sorry. It's a compliment because it's like it's almost super perfect. Like the themes that I'm like, it was so perfect. I'm like, uh huh, like allegories and all the characters are perfect and like what it's trying to say about society and life is so obvious and you're like hmm. And then little things like that I'm like you can't use the 4 bars out of a song that makes everyone cry and you just sneak it in there every once in a while. Anyway, yeah, so here's the thing about listening of in terms of my panic in shushing everyone right now is just that I can't quite hear it. It's not as relaxing as when you hear a refrain that you like and you're like, "Yay, play it for me again." It's like I can't quite, so it's like, "What is that now?" I it's
Mm,
too far. It's not obvious enough for me to enjoy it. It's really not obvious enough for me to enjoy it. There's a few things that I can hear that they're there, but I can't. Which is why it's so useless to anybody.
mhm.
So, do you need to go back outside to me? Anyway, so what else other than the thoroughbred?
Well, I don't know, let's talk about the hooking on in the sense of drawing straight in or coming into gunfire or finding their way into the loop. And I don't know, maybe we don't have to talk about it more, but it's interesting that that's what came to mind when you showed me or when you sent that little clip. And probably because that's something I've been finding helping people find success with. So,
And
but
another thing, like you think about because I have had a number of people that have had bolting issues. Have I told you about that? It's such an odd. I mean, if you think back to Pirelli Land, did anybody have that problem? I don't feel like that was a thing.
I started with that problem.
Yeah, but it's not like it persisted years later. And you know what I was thinking about is a circling game because it doesn't take very long if you're rewarding if you're making it that yourself is the sweet spot, yourself. If you're making it that you are the sweet spot, like how many times like 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 1 session, depending on the horse. But by the time you can make 5 to 6 laps, which I looked up is in level 2, 5 to 6 laps, and they'll just come yield their hindquarters and, whatever. I guess they could stay there, but you could also just add a little bit of forward if you want to and have them come straight on. Straight on would be smart. But either way, it doesn't matter. If you repeat that pattern, do something, come back to me. Um, I'm just saying, I was thinking that's kind of interesting because that would also be a cure. And the other thing that I was thinking about the circling game, which by the way, you guys, I mean, I have not used in my program, I don't know, for 15 years or something like that. But I definitely did before that. And um I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but one thing, also by the time you get the horse out on the 22-foot line and they're going to canter 2 to 4 laps, maintaining gait and come back to you, it's like, well, I mean, what's going to happen then? that it would cause your horse to just bolt out of your hands. Like, where are they going to go? Why would they leave if you're the sweet spot? Which Pat would always say, you have to be the icon of safety. Right. So, anyway, point being that all of the hooking on in every variation is the same sort of principle. Right. And it's like, what are, the same goal. The thing I feel like of doing it, and I would imagine that's what you're feeling too, or seeing start to shape up. But like the Gary's corner and the coming straight on, which you did not see in that clip, because obviously by the time you're shaking out a loop, you have to stand a little bit to the side. But is the all 4 feet coming straight and even. Which, by the way, if you look at Pat and Magic back in the day, he totally had that. Right? And sometimes he would get that to happen with 2 different sticks. You see people doing it all sorts of different ways, or, clicking horses into it, or whatever the deal is. But that desire, and that was the coolest thing about the Remy video, is that, like, there was just nothing involved, and Gary didn't hardly do anything with that horse. He basically stood in a paddock for 4 days while we did other horses. But that little day that he did, it was really fun to see that horse just dial in. No treats, no repetition, like nothing. He was just like, "Oh, okay. I'll find the sweet spot."
Mhm.
And it was so suitable to him. I think that's probably what you saw in the clip, is like there's just a suitability to the horse. But my point being that the evenness, two things: evenness on all 4 feet, and also locomoting themselves forward from the hind legs, from the 2 hind legs, while the front feet get out of the way. I would just say that, the way that I practice the circling game, a lot of times it would be that the hindquarters, quote unquote, disengage way out on the arc, and then the horse comes forward. Whereas, on a Gary's corner, there's no disengaging. It's just that the horse is changing trajectory and coming straight. And
So
that
would
would,
hold on, you would say you're using the term disengage
I did.
as as kind of throwback slash label
Mhm,
or yield but don't come in, right? Because you're not
mhm.
actually in that case disengaging. You were
My
just not
result,
saying, huh?
my result probably was.
Oh, it was, yes,
I
100%. Yeah. I only say that because there were a number of people that were helping last night that was the vocabulary, and that's certainly what they were getting. I was like, whoa, this is not
that's not.
fostering connection. This is not fostering balance. This is not fostering a feeling. Even if your horse likes you, this is not fostering a feeling of us flowing together and feeling good. It fosters a feeling of kind of choppiness and obedience and
The only
whatever that's not particularly desirable, even in terms of the horse's perspective and how it makes them feel.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that what I did notice with my horses is that then they could relax. They knew the plan.
Hmm.
And so, especially when the environment was consistent, and they felt good, it was not unvaluable. Not, I mean, even though I would say that I was doing it disengaging. Yeah, I feel like, there's a shelf. I'm sure Pat would be like, "Duh, I just didn't get a chance to tell you guys that," or whatever. Who knows?
So,
But I'm just saying the way I did it.
mhm. So when you say it, like it's inevitably going to work out if you're the sweet spot and if you repeat the pattern, and I will say it inevitably won't if all of it is you trying to make the horse do it, particularly depending on the personality of the horse that's more put off by you trying to get it to happen.
Yeah,
So
but that was the
I'll
whole
just
point.
I'll just throw that in.
But
Huh.
that's the whole point of standing in neutral
Kevin.
and letting the horse do it. I mean, you were not playing the circling game until you were able to stand there, cock a leg, and pass the lead rope around. I mean, that's the definition of letting the horse do it.
I know, but you can still be making the horse do it.
How?
Just saying.
Like how?
Well, if they're doing it to get away from pressure rather than with a
Yes, but that's only going to last so long. If they're going to be out there maintaining gait for X amount of time, there's going to be a point where they're not getting away from pressure, right? I think that was the beauty
yeah.
of
Mhm.
it. Then the send could get pretty sketch.
Mhm.
you know,
That and it could be done without really any connection. Like even the drawing in can be I don't know, just different experience.
yes, I know.
Coming.
I love talking to you about it because I was
No,
on my own island.
you're huh?
I was on my own island, so I love talking to you about it because I really wasn't around other.
Well, and it wasn't I mean, yes, I was around others and witnessed it with others, but whether I was on the mainland among the others, um, I was still on my own island, and my island wasn't as enjoyable as yours. Which is
Mine was like everybody high on drugs, just relaxing. Like it was so fun.
not mine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, I guess it does come to mind is all I'm saying as like I'm seeing this, because I was like, I just don't remember that being a thing, and it easily translated from your first circling game to where you could stand there and the horse would make 2 laps to it just seemed to me now I hear you saying that this is not the case, but I'll just say what my thought has been. Like the inevitability of being able to stand out in a field and have the horse make little trot circles, as many as you want at liberty, without cookies. I'm not talking about treats. Well, it's just inevitable. You have to work at it, and it might take
Yeah.
years. And you have
Okay. So yeah, you have to work at it and okay. Yeah.
anyway. This is what occurs to me and then I'm thinking of like why. So the same thing of like what you're saying, hooking on. It's like, well, it's kind of cool. Then inevitably it works out that the horse is more hooked on. One thing
Okay.
I
Two things though. Well, one thing, because I don't know if I'll remember the second one. If you're high on drugs, you can go like, whoa, and just be like, this is awesome, and receive it. If you're not high on drugs, like, and you're got your teeth grit, I'm gonna get this. You don't have that feeling, and it can still. I mean, how many times? And this is maybe a stage of working at it, but I've seen Liberty done well, Liberty done not well, where yes, the horse eventually slots into going around you, but some of the process is not very much at all the horse enjoying that. It's if I leave, it's going to be unpleasant enough that I'm staying here because I know if I leave, it's not going to work out for me. Right. And so they're going around with their ears pinned or they're kind of, there's not really a connection there. And it might, over time and repetition, the horse goes, oh, okay. And the value comes into partnership and the horse enjoying it. But I've seen liberty that was not accomplished that way or not, like I said, maybe being generous in process, looking that way, even though it may have in the end the final fruit looked more like that.
It's
And I'll just say that my operation at that time was more that process and wasn't coming out the other side because of the way because I wasn't high enough.
May I just say it one more time? I really wasn't actually on drugs, you guys. Not that there's
But
anything.
we're gonna just roll with that analogy and keep saying it so it sounds like you were.
That's how carefree and just happy go lucky the whole thing was. I didn't
I
realize.
was not in a carefree stage of life at all.
Yeah.
Just saying, totally different experiences. And therefore, I think, you know, as we're talking about how to describe your program, the guideposts and like journey language versus levels or whatever, I have a pretty different perspective than you do on it, both personally, say I was on my own island, or personally own island, going to the mainland, interacting with lots of people, attempting to help them, being in a pretty different spot than you, not high on drugs. Um, that it's questionable. I mean, there's the like magic of a system
Yeah.
is you can communicate and help people along, even though like I was pretty well missing the boat through a lot of that. And in one sense, you can be like, how helpful really was I? But people were getting results to some level.
It was kind of 6-7.
Oh my God. You just crossed the line, man. Let's not go there. We can talk about being high on drugs. We can talk about a lot of things, but
I just had to work it in for the
yeah, I
parody.
hear that so often. It's not funny. Uh,
Oh my god. Adam Carolla's like, one day you're gonna look back and you'll be like, life was short, and then I spent a whole day on 6-7, and you're gonna feel like an idiot. That's right.
mm,
Yeah. So I do think it's a good point about having a system and letting it work
mhm.
for you. Um, but even your point about like making things uncomfortable out on the circle, like, because I guess I just didn't. I suppose I forget that that was even part of the process for some people. Just because so much
And
now, and this is how we do it, right, guys? Is like you're coming to the sweet spot, you're moving towards the peace, like, so I forget that there was like an element of moving away to get to the middle. I forgot, like, I honestly did forget about that. So yes, you're right. Right, Julie? Seriously.
I think the other thing is, as we've said before, the value of seeing, interacting with on a short term basis, working with on a longer term basis, horse after horse after horse after horse. And in that world, depending on the horse you have and
Hmm.
how that meshes with your personality, while others are on cloud nine for one reason or another, or maybe two reasons, um, it can be more difficult when you have a horse that is kind of like the horse that pushes all your buttons in terms of your strengths, your weaknesses, your flaws, the things that are inside of you that don't make it about the horse.
Hmm.
So, and that's where like I can see people now with a horse that's pretty challenging, not in the sense that they're dangerous or like a huge problem, but it's challenging because the horse, like the line of what that horse feels is appropriate is razor thin, right? And that's a little bit what it was with this. this mare, and her line in particular will broaden. Like, she'll be a little bit more forgiving. Like right now, she's just pissed off about anything you'd say, really. And so if you're a little abrupt or a little confusing, she just like would throw herself around. It's like, well, that doesn't help us, right? But I had to, you know, shepherd her through that. Um, but if, like there's a type of horse that's more difficult for a person given their personality. If you have someone who's pretty like gruff, they just kind of bowl through life, and then you give them a horse that is going to butt heads with that,
Don't
or
give
you
them.
give them a horse, that's just going to be completely overwhelmed by that. They're going to have to adjust themselves to truly find success with that horse, depending on what their definition of success is. And that can, if that's your only horse, really shape the journey,
Yeah, you're right.
particularly depending on your motivations too. Like, what are you trying to get done, and how, well, what are you trying to get done? Yeah. Like, why are you doing it? What's your measure of success? Is it the horse just doing this so you can say, I got the horse doing this? Or is it like, I don't care what the horse does? Like, if we can be on cloud nine together, that'd be like, that really is the goal. And so you can say that's the goal, but you can also behave in such a way that
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
not the goal,
It might
right?
not, probably for a lot of
Right.
people, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
They wouldn't even take the mushrooms or lick the whatever, even if they're raw.
see, we're gonna keep going with this one. This is gonna be as pervasive as the weeds we crawl through.
Like instead of the psilocybin or whatever, it'd be like, give me the Adderall. We're gonna get this shit done. Those are different kinds of drugs.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's a very interesting side note. Can I just share with? I meant to tell you about this, but this is the value of the show. So Vivian, I love taking care of her so much, Michael. It's so awesome. I'm just so grateful. I guess just to add, as part of the whole arc of like horsemanship for however long we've been together, this the story of like going to the rescue to pick out a horse to experiment with, having her walk up to me, bringing her home, figuring out what she was, the whole process of, developing her, and then her getting to stay with me, and then just getting to be with her every single day and spoil the heck out of her. It's just, I would not have, it's just remarkable. And we don't need to dwell on it, but it's remarkable how much joy there is in that. I would not have, even though in my gut, I guess a little bit, or my intuition was, of course, I didn't want her to leave and I didn't want to just, find a new place for her or whatever. I just wanted to pay to note for the record that this part of the experience now feels like, well, of course, this would be part of it, you know? And
And so your experience, yet again, or even still, is different than mine, although creeping along the same lines, because I do, in some weird way, enjoy rewrapping Heidi's foot now, thankfully, every 3 days rather than every day, because I really like her. And she's a quirky little mess, but, for whatever reason, like, I hate doing it because I was like, got another however many minutes doing this, but it feels good in another sense because it's investing her in a way that you're not really getting anything back for it outside of maybe like, okay, thankfully I have a horse that's come through and a sound again that I like. I mean, I guess it still can be selfish, but um yeah.
yeah, it's noteworthy.
but it is probably surprising to a degree where I'm going, I kind of actually, in some weird sense, like doing this, even though why would you like having to take care of your horse and rewrap their foot while their foot looks like absolute shit and you're still wondering if it's going to come together a year down the road because that's how long the process will take. You know, in some senses, someone could easily say, "What a waste of time! Like, spend your time elsewhere."
Mhm.
And
I'm
so,
not your prerogative to say that. Is it better? Is it getting better? Would you say trending?
well, I
Maybe.
mean that yes, I mean the farrier and the vet are both like, "Wow, this like just keep going." At the same time, you don't know what the end result is. I mean, right now, the front of her foot between her hoof wall and her sole is an inch and a half wide open. That's how far her sole is from her hoof wall. But everything in there is hard. You know, she can twisting is still uncomfortable pivoting on that foot, but so it's a yes, it's better in that it's not like smelling like dead flesh and like you have this big gap and you have no clue what's going on in there. We still don't really know what's going on there, but it seems like it's together. You know, like structures in there aren't rotting. I had maggots in her feet at one point. I don't know if I mentioned that on on the show. I mean, it was just crazy, right? But now it's still a question. In the end, will that hoof wall come down and reattach to the sole at some point? Because right now it is just straight up not attached. And there is no letting her out into the world without her foot wrapped. Although the vet said she thinks we might be able to at some point because there's nothing, you know, it does seem like it's sealed up with whatever is in there between the hoof wall and the sole. I'm a little leery of that, although it would be nice to not have to wrap it all winter. It's like I don't want to go backward for all the effort I've put into going forward. But you know, who knows whether that will reconnect or like we're going to be where we are now forever. Like maybe it won't. So is she better? Yes, but I still have no clue what the end result, like how thorough the end result will be. You know, maybe your foot is like she's sound enough on it to operate and you wouldn't have to, you know, wrap her anymore, but she's just her foot looks like that and she's limited in her ability and it's going to be ouchy to turn. Or maybe it looks great, she's fine, but she's a little off. She's not going to be a real she's not going to be a completely sound riding horse, but she's sealed up and comfortable and healthy and can be a broodmare. Or maybe cross the fingers, like we're back to where we started. We got a sound riding horse. The foot is completely closed up and healed, and there we go. And now she can be Lydia's like fancy little pony, which was the goal in the first place. So, and Lydia's doing her part. She's like getting handier and all that. She's having a blast. She showed me some like I didn't have time to look at it, but I think her and Stephanie put together like an obstacle course maybe, and then Stephanie was scoring her and giving her like feedback, and so Lydia now has to like work on the thing. So that's like completely up Lydia's alley. Again, I didn't look at it to know exactly what it was, but I don't know.
Yeah. Fun.
So
So
Lydia's doing her part. If Heidi can put herself together, and then I got to get her, you know, a little bit less kind of spastic, or to where she just feels like she can leave the rectangle when she gets a wild hair. But again, that's what I like about her. So I'll have to let that happen for a while just because I enjoy it and we'll have fun with it and then be like, okay, that's long enough. Now let's get you operating correctly. Uh,
oh, that's so funny. I
you'll be happy to know recently, I hadn't been riding Rooster for a while, brought him in. He really wanted to just rip around and be a racehorse. And I was like, nah, let's maybe if I turn you loose and you could go run around and kick and jump and go as fast as you damn well can. But let's not do that while I'm riding you. Let's keep all 4 feet on the ground, get smooth, get even. So I was able to do that.
Good job.
And in a way that wasn't squelching either. So
Cool.
but I do want to get him out on a track when he's like with me and rip around out there for
Just make sure you video that.
will do.
Fun to live vicariously through you.
The our farrier has a track out
You,
on his place, yeah. So
that's so cool.
one of
Spring.
these days.
Yeah. What saddle will you use?
I don't know. I suppose I could throw an English saddle on there and jack my stirrups up and pretend I'm little.
Good
Who
luck.
knows? I don't know. I, I'm not looking for it to be like the fastest in the world. I just want to feel that dead out gallop with as much power and length as he has, with like lots of open space in front of me, letting him, encouraging him to do what he's bred to do.
Hmm.
English or Western saddle is probably going to be in the way of him doing that in the most stretched out athletic way possible, but
Still fine. Yeah.
that'd probably be just fine anyway.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but it's been fun, you know. I know this is your world, but it's been fun working with. I mean, I always kind of have, but recently some um, eventers and English riders that like the saddles. You know, I've hopped on a few. And it's like every time you're like, okay, find your legs again, find your seat. Like this is a little different, but it does have a different feel. Um, and then you're riding a horse that you're not super familiar with, and um, I
Yeah.
enjoy it.
I would not be. I would be so out of shape right now to get. I would have to get my sea legs. I wouldn't be super into crawling on a bunch of unknown horses.
Well, I wouldn't, you know. Someone asked me. Well, she asked me yesterday about this little thoroughbred, and I'm like, I get on there and just based on the whatever groundwork I've done, I feel like I'd be safe. I know you guys have ridden her. Okay, she's kicked out, she's reared, she's bulked, but the hindquarter I have now, I like have enough that I could shape and direct her through that and get her forward just like we have on the ground. But would I? No, because there's a lot of things that you could like, I would get a rope around her and make sure, like, she's not going, "I don't like it touching me there," and, like, has a positive response to forward. So, like, if you know to do that and you know there's a big hole there, like, why would you? It's just address that first. It's setting it up to be easier for her, easier on her. And yet I'll get on a horse that's like, "Well, this horse is safe. I haven't gone through all the steps. It's not, you know, covering all the bases, but this person got their groundwork a little better. They're working on it, little shades of improvement, them understanding the horse changing a little. Now they're in the saddle. They're still kind of, this is all new in the saddle. The horse is a little sticky, whatever, and I can kind of help the horse through it. You know, I'll do that too and not take the time to go through the whole restarting process. So it kind of depends. You know, you make a judgment call as to where the horse is and what they can handle, and then hopefully you're right and don't end up in a pickle. Usually, I've already seen what the horse can handle being in a pickle with someone else, and they've held it together in a spot of quite a lot of confusion or frustration or whatever. And then I know getting on, like I'm able to offer something that's maybe a little clearer and has a door, has a puzzle, an answer to the puzzle that's going to feel good. So you kind of you make the call that you should be able to help them find that without having gone back and done all this. But if they're troubled and whatever, then it's like, well, it's not worth it. Like I can get her better about this. Like if you really want that to shape up, let's go back to your groundwork and continue working on that. But that doesn't happen super often. You know, you go with where people are, same as a, a buck clinic. Like there's a lot of times where before class even starts, you'll have a person or two get dumped because they're coming in not having, not knowing anything, just with the resources they've had before, with the horse they've had before, and they come into class going, okay, I'm here, I'm going to do it. And they don't have the what they'll have in a few days to support the horse. They just go with what they got and they kind of get themselves in trouble. So if that's the case and the horse is just a mess, I'm not going to go climb on that horse, even though I can probably get by it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So whatever. I'm just kind of babbling. None of that's terribly important, but
It's interesting. It's all very interesting, the choices, and just the idea of like some things are just going to add up no matter how,
Mhm,
like a little bit back to the top of the show. It's like some things are just going to add up to what we're kind of looking for. And you think about somebody that comes to a buck clinic that can hardly get by on Friday, like by the skin of their teeth. But if they do what he says, sure enough, by Sunday it's going to work out.
mhm,
So, that's not 40 years of study, but it's
mhm,
a lasered in, and like this is, do this, and so it's kind of funny to just be in the place where I don't know how to describe it. I guess, it's so cool that there are things that suit the horse so much
mhm,
that they will just add up to a result that is so awesome, you know.
mhm.
And that is pretty much satisfactory to enjoying the whole thing.
So I felt so good about yesterday because it was a fairly tall order. I had 7 hours, 9 people, I think. So 2 groups of 2, and everything else was individuals. But I only had an hour in each case, and I have to get them from, in some cases, absolutely zero to believing on or like my goal is to. I don't have to. I'd like to believing in some sense that what I'm showing them
Yeah.
is value. They're going to get enough of a result in an hour, starting with not knowing anything and with a horse that's kind of already not behaving the way they'd like to. And this was all on the ground this time, but um, and there was one where I was like, oh, and this is one of the groups. I only had half as much time in the context of helping 2 people to tweak and adjust for her. I was like, oh, I gotta get something like somewhere in the last 10 minutes here. I have to help her find success enough where she's been struggling. And really, for her, it was a lot of she just wanted to hold the front end and get the horse to stop by pulling on the lead rope. And she was pulling down on the lead rope. And she just kept going back to that, going back to that. Like, you gotta let the horse do it. And right at the end, it came together for her, and you saw her go, oh, it worked. It's like, oh, thank God. And then all of them, I was like, we set this up because I was informed and I trusted Olivia on it. You guys are used to one on one individual lessons, English style, mostly riding, not a lot of groundwork. Clinic is overwhelming, not really wanting to pay the money, not knowing me and whatever. So we're going to do individual lessons. First time, you guys can get a taste for it. Um, but every time I was like, I wish we had more time because you're getting onto it. But there's so much more that you need for this to really all of it work for you. So you kind of got to trust me that there's other pieces. And with more practice, what you're doing here is going to shape up into even more. And depending on the person, some of them got a lot further, depending on the person, the horse, whatever. But anyways, one, it was really fun. There was a young gal, maybe I don't want to say how old she was, so we'll just give a pretty big range, like between 9 and 12, probably somewhere in the middle of that, and had this big thoroughbred, not massive thoroughbred, but relative to her, pretty big thoroughbred, and terrified of the flag. So, like, okay, got to keep her safe. She knows nothing. And that was a fun one too, to like carefully thread your way through it to where she's doing some of it and you're not just taking the horse. And so it started out with her just like a little bit more space in there, assuring the horse it's not going to get you. You can stop your feet. One sweep of the flag, two sweeps of the flag, a little bit more. Okay, switch sides. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need to do this next part because it's going to be intense. Like the moving the flag in and actually getting it on the withers. Like I knew the horse was just going to leap sideways. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So she was sitting down for that part, and I worked through getting the flag up on the horse's withers and along his back. But then in the end, she was doing that all on her own. And that was another one where it's like, so do we do this every day? I'm like, yes, but carefully, because it might start out tomorrow, right about where it started out today. And we want to stay safe. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm not saying just assume it's going to be okay for you to do as a 9-year old when your horse is like towering over you. So
Cool.
that's fun.
Nah, I love to see you so happy about it. Very cool. Well, we have a few more minutes. So what do you guys think? What tell me what you guys are thinking. Look, I'm listening. See?
You are.
Look at that.
You can get you to shut up once in a while.
Uh, I haven't wanted to talk. That's
Well, that's yeah. You're just like, don't make me get into the nitty gritty right now. I just want to sit here and make it through the show so I can go back to my own little zoned out world and just feel and listen. And some point in the future here, we'll start talking about what I've been feeling for.
Well, I was telling Nathan this week, I'm like, I'm at that stage where really nobody should be watching me. Nobody that's
Mhm.
learning from me anyway should be watching me ride. Just because it's not something that you can look at and be like, I'm going to do that. No, it's just far, far away from, and you really shouldn't be just trying to recreate what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's been a while since it's been so free form, and especially like building some gymnastics. And it is not appropriate for most people to be watching me ride in the sense of like, and now I'm going to do that. It's just not.
Well, it's probably like, what are you doing? Right. So,
Well, yes, and then the context with which you could even explain it is just,
mm,
it's so far. It's like, I don't even know if you guys should be thinking about that right now, because it's just so far from just because I'm at this stage where I'm looping in basically 2 decades. So 20 years that came before Buck and Gary, obviously Buck and Gary. There's 20 years of data before that, that now is sprinkling in and filtering down and like creating. So it's like, well, anyone who's been around, it's like I haven't even talked about that stuff. I've talked about Pirelli more in the last 6 months here, with you, than I have in forever. But let alone than
even though you were high while you were doing it and loving it, you- you've not talked about the joys
really.
much. Well, not much.
That was so fun. It was so fun. But and then all the like all the time of sitting at dressage clinics, and all of that I couldn't understand or recreate, or sort of getting part of it but missing all the horsemanship. And like, that's a terrible way to say it. I'm so sorry to be disrespectful of my teachers at that, but I mean, I was missing like a whole bunch of, like, if Buck talks about a complete horse, I had 5%. And so, but I had like this whole, anyway, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's so pointless to even talk about. But what's nice is having this winter time where it's like I don't really have to be talking to anybody. And then when I go to Corey and Tammy's to teach, like, it's just like I to get back in the zone, you know. which is fun and good to do. Uh, but anyway, it's just interesting the ebb and flow of it. I guess this is the part that might be valuable to talk about for is the zooming out and zooming in, maybe. Or, and I would have described it before as like you and I have talked about, like the intuition to the logical mind and all of that. And now at this point, there's like, I don't know, maybe you could help me describe it. There's like a physiological development. I don't, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it other than it's like if you were looking out at the ocean with the glasses, with the binoculars, and can really focus in on something, but you as you're doing this, there's a point where it gets really fuzzy. And I don't hate that. I don't hate it at all. Like it's very cool um to be in that place, but it is a little bit cut off is all I'm saying. It is a little bit cut off from like the normal, like normal life, I guess is all I'm saying. Like normal life is being able to talk about all these things and have a very organized, and it sucks because right as I'm starting, like was ready to render the guideposts, now I'm like, I don't want to think about any of that right now. I don't want to talk about it. And it's like, oh crap, well hopefully this comes and goes, sort of. But on the other hand, it's like the it's like lighting the forest on fire, and you don't want to put it out too early, you know. I'm not for sure. Corey says, what I'm taking out of this conversation is that our mindset and intention and overall way of approaching the horse will always determine half or more of the outcome. Good point. No matter what, no pressure. Lick more
That
mushrooms. Maybe that's the answer.
that is the crux of the matter, at
Even-
least from my perspective.
It is the crux of the matter, of course. And I was thinking about this in regards to mares and geldings, which I might just totally be out to lunch, you guys. Totally possible. I get that. Um, but I do personally keep coming back to what the mayor, and especially a sensitive mayor, which I think they all are, unless maybe they're just really, really seasoned or something like that, But it's pretty wild. The depth of what's going on is shocking to me. And that maybe is part of what I'm able to perceive right now, being so loose with everything. For instance, I'll just take a little for instance. So my little hot rod, Hopalicious, I haven't done much with her, but I put her blanket on and off, have her feet done, move her around a little bit. But she came, as you know, so sensitive and so defensive. I think she liked who she lived with quite a bit and who trained her and raised her and all that. But regardless, very sensitive mare. Um, to the point where because like the ear pinning and the defensive, and like she looks scary at times. The only reason she is not scary is just because I have a baseline, but also being like, I'm pretty sure all of this is unconfidence and defense, so just kind of messing around a little bit with that, and sometimes when the ears and the whole situation comes, and be like, you're fine, just anyway taking that tactic and seeing where it goes. So they're bringing the horse in at dark last night, and horses in, and the other girls went ahead of me to the barn, and Hope right at my shoulder. And it's like, which was there's no reason for her to do that. I hadn't, set that up in any way. She was just obviously remembering the feeling that we've tapped into little bits at a time. And just allowing that to loop back and show back up. I wasn't thinking about anything. I don't know. I mean, I might have even been on the phone or listening to a podcast or something. I don't remember, but I all of a sudden it's like, what's happening here? So anyways, the mares and geldings. I wonder if it has something to do with the fact that the mares are intact, maybe? And the gelding is altered. I have no desire to be around stallions. Just, I mean, again, that's a sweeping statement, but I personally am very sensitive to the discontent. And my experience is that mares can get very content and that mothery, like warm feeling that is between me and them. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has experienced that, where you get to be they're treating you like they are the full a little tiny bit, so the relationship is so, like, you get something out of it that is natural to them. I'm not for sure, but I just keep looping back to this feeling of something being missing. Or maybe I'm just noticing that for whatever reason I'm tapping into this with the mares. And side note, Hope is kind of interesting because she comes into heat all the time, and like too much. And it's not like she's mean or anything like that. I think I've mentioned this to you, but she is just squatting like all the time. Kind of in the sense that, like, this is a little bit in the way. So there are ways to adjust her hormones so that make sure she doesn't have a cyst. And but although I don't think she has a cyst, just because she's very comfortable, and why would she not be rolling into heat through the rest of the year? But anyway, who knows? But I wonder if that, and of course, you could also spay her. She's young and gorgeous and super fancy and all the stuff. You could invest the $2,500 and spay her. Now she's very nicely bred, but I think if you mess with their hormones with the shot or whatever, it's possible that she won't get pregnant anyway. But what I was thinking is, I was like, I wonder what that would do to alter them like that. I'm not for sure. I don't know. Um that's funny. I'm a realtor, you guys. So this Karen homeowner association, pretty funny. Also funny. Yeah. Anyway, who wants a 50-year mortgage? No, just kidding. Anyway, what do you think about that, Michael? I mean, I'm not purposefully talking about it or thinking about it. I'm not purposefully thinking about it, but it does keep coming up. Do you think it's just because I'm able to touch on things that are just a little bit farther?
Mm, no, I mean, it's interesting. Like, there is definitely a different dynamic with mares and geldings, and that makes a lot of people prefer geldings. But it also, mares are pretty special because of that, right? Um,
There's a
and
there.
I'm just talking the general difference that most people observe, right? Not even what you're describing, where they can have that kind of nurturing element. I don't know that I've experienced that or thought about that, but as you're describing the discontent, I mean, it sounded like, correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying the mares come through that discontent to a degree where a stallion that's maybe always a little underlying, even as they get pretty hooked on, and like the hormones are still can be kind of raging beneath the surface. But you think about either A, some studs that are just like you wouldn't know they're studs, and there maybe the hormones just aren't as strong, or it doesn't, like, they have more self control, whatever, or they've learned to be that way because of the way they've been handled, and they just kind of slot into that. Or you think of in Europe, all the males are intact,
Mhm.
right? And I'm sure that has its own, well, I know. and I'm sure it has its own set of challenges. And some stallions are more challenged, same as any horses, geldings, mares. Some horses are more challenging, and it just ups the ante when they're studs. Um, so the more challenging horse is probably exponentially more challenging in that case. Um, and I haven't been in Europe around horses much, but you, I guarantee, have owners that struggle in very similar ways here. Like, this horse is a lot more than I can handle. This horse I need help with, the whole thing. And then if you have the skill to help a horse settle, to slot in, to be mare or gelding or stallion, responsible and know the rectangle and find peace within it, I would say at least depending on the horse, like they can really slot into that, but it's going to be each horse different and some easier than others.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know. I'm thinking of the Spanish riding school where they've got like how many studs in there. I don't know.
yeah, and
I
it's
haven't looked and studied it enough or looked into it enough to know how many they have. But Tom and Michelle were just there, and they have like something like 160 horses in training at any given time, and I think they have 16 trainers. So that's
oh,
each person in there. I think 6 days a week, or maybe even 7 days a week, they're training. And I'm sure not at each horse 7 days a week. They're filtering through them, but how many horses? If you have 16 trainers, I don't know how big the arena is. It's not tiny, but it's also not massive. You have 16 studs in the arena at any given time. They're passing each other in the alley. They have grooms doing all of this. It's not just the trainers. You know, and where do they start out? Like, how much are they, just kind of good natured through the breeding? Like, that they kind of have an easier time of it than a stud who's been breeding from day one, started, in the breeding program as a 3-year old and maybe hasn't gone under saddle because they wanted to get him breeding more, or just being fed grain like up the wazoo because they want this energized Western performance horse or whatever. And so, like, the combination of that, this horse just lives in that kind of heightened. I don't know. I'm talking about stuff I don't know anything about, and I'm mostly just imagining the case based on my experience with horses and what I've seen. But
yeah, and same. I mean, same. Obviously, I've been around stallions that are super sweet and gentle and a pleasure to ride, and um, there certainly are people and schools of thought where it's all stallions. You wouldn't ride anything else. Maybe a mare occasionally, but the rest of it's just ridiculous. Like for sure, for sure. And I am specifically referring to the discontent that I think is running through this is and I have experienced this, no question, that is running through the stallion because he should be breeding. Like that, I don't that is that can be heightened or muted, obviously, depending on this is my supposition, depending on that individual, also how much they're working and contentment they're getting out of their life and like, other places. But you have that thread that isn't being met through that animal versus a mare who this is my experience, you guys, my tiny little experience, but I think that the dynamic that I have been able to have on occasion with my mares, I get to suit and complete that picture. The mare full pair. Like somehow we are, which it sounds stupid. I mean, but I'm just saying there's something that I just feel it's almost it just feels like it fits together in the most natural way. Um, and like I said, I've been around some stallions that are just amazing,
in so many ways. I could see why somebody wouldn't want to give any of that up. But on the other hand, you do have to be careful how much you snuggle with them. You do have to be careful with how, how mushy you are with them. You do, and anyway, that's not my preference, is all I'm saying. It doesn't suit my
Yeah.
lifestyle either. I'm not they're not going to be in training 6 days a week. They're not going to be with a bunch of other studs. That I'm surely that has a huge part of it. If they all get to be turned out together and playing together, then that's not something that I've ever seen before. Like I just haven't been to those farms where it's a bunch of studs out together. Um anyway, I think that's it's a little bit of an interesting thing that I'm just happening upon. And I always feel kind of sad about talking about it because I love they're so the geldings. What a blessing all of them are, and I have had some amazing ones. I have some, uh, but I don't know. There's just different stuff from my perception. I perceive different stuff. That's all I mean. There's
I
a
I I don't I completely agree. Totally different feel in there.
and it's just more.
It's hard to put your finger on it too.
And
Hard to
there's
describe.
a listening component that like back around to me being in this place where I'm just like, shh, you know, a little bit. That's what I'm putting my finger on. And I mentioned that a little bit with Rook. Hope is just sort of random. There a bunch of them, and you're like, oh, there's more. If I can stop and be quiet enough, and things are kind of trending in the appropriate direction. Like I said, it's like a symphony, and all of a sudden you can hear a single instrument, a single part in it.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, 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 like you were hearing it, I suppose, all along. But so I find that extraordinary to be able to hear different things. Like if you go in the forest, in a rainstorm, it just sounds like, But if you stay there long enough, pretty soon you can hear the difference between the rain and the stream. You can hear the birds.
Birds that are out.
Yes, you can hear the difference between the deer and the turkeys, and like, so it's that same concept that I'm sure people have experienced, but I just uh
Well, it's interesting to think on those analogies, like how many times I've walked through the forest, and then you can appreciate it in a general sense, like it just the way it makes you feel, and but you're not thinking about. You're like, oh, I want to like maybe we can see a bear out here or whatever. Like, oh, there's some wildlife. Some people aren't going to want to see the bear, um, but then how much it can change your experience when you start observing the different flowers or seeing the rock formations, and you start getting interested in that, or you become a birder, and the birder is like said, oh, there's this bird, and so you hear it and it just stands out to you, and you're looking for it. um or what was the other one? Or music, like you said, like someone says, oh, can you hear the flute there? And I'm like, oh yeah, I just heard the music, I didn't notice the flute, but yeah, that is kind of a cool little. And or just do music appreciation in high school. It's like, what are the drums doing? When do they come in? And what kind of drum? And um, it doesn't necessarily. It could, I suppose, but it doesn't take away from the whole. It can enhance the whole, and I think that's what that
exactly.
getting quiet and listening, or being with a coach that's saying, "Listen for this, feel for this, watch for this." That can expand the experience and take you, at least in terms of with the with the horses, take you further. Or if you're like wanting to be a musician, like observing the where the instrument comes in and comes out because a coach has pointed out to you that can cause you to be a better musician. Like, I don't know, it's a little different when you're building a skill like being a musician or being a horseman than experiencing the forest. There you're just becoming aware, you're not building a skill to influence the forest, or if you are, it's on a very long time frame,
And
beyond your lifetime.
I love that. Yeah. And also there are times when you can't just be in the forest zooming in on one tiny little thing
Mhm.
if you're trying to get somewhere. You have to at least perceive everything. Your inner ear has to be working to make sure you don't wipe out, and like you can't just be totally concentrated on one tiny little thing either. So I think there's an element of that also, is where there's times when it's like a detriment to be zoomed.
Mhm.
Do you think? And and you're like, oh, that's bad. Don't do that. Don't worry about that. You're obsessing over something that just doesn't even matter. But then
Or
there's other times.
oh, go ahead.
Well, there's
I was
other
just
times.
gonna say, or if you own a farm and you like notice all the invasives and you're like, "Ugh," you're trying to enjoy the forest, but all you see is the invasives, it can be a detriment to your experience when you start noticing that. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's all there is to it. But I do think there's an element of appreciation. And of course, when the horses come into it, I think that's probably what I experienced with Rook a couple weeks ago. It's like her noticing that I could hear something different was impactful to her as well. And then there's more to work with. Um, which there always was, but it's up to me to be able to be more intricate. Again, back to the symphony. It's like you could play the piano and sing, and then that might be way better than trying to direct a whole symphony, especially if you don't know anything. But as it can kind of all work together, you could add some, and then it's very add another instrument and multiples of the whatever to build a symphony. And then that of course is a much is a more intricate, you know, sound. I was thinking of how weird it is to have all the AI music, that will it's just think about what it was like as
I
teenagers.
don't like it.
Yeah, but me.
I don't like seeing a video and being like, or a picture. Like
Yeah,
it was one thing when AI was kind of like
novelty, yeah.
awful, and it's like, oh, that's AI, like, or that's Photoshop, right? Like, unless you're really good with Photoshop, a lot of times you can just tell it something doesn't look right. But as AI has gotten better, where you're like going, like, is that real? Is that not? I don't like that feeling because then it's like you can't trust anything.
Nobody likes that feeling. And our lives will be so different in 5 years. But what I will have always the memory of, and you too, and is going into a concert hall to hear a symphony, and all of that being orchestrated and played out, with 100 people or something like that to create that sound, and just basking in that whole experience. There's individuality in that sound.
Well,
You
people will always be able to experience that, but as AI gets better, it'll be,
Yeah.
you know, like the conversation we had before, like how much does it's just, it makes me sad. But how much does sitting there next to Tanya Tucker, like, can AI compete? Probably not. But it's so you have an audiophile who, like, when everything was switching to MP3s, it's like there's quality being lost, and they needed this special file or whatever. And like, I can't tell the difference, right? I don't even know what the lyrics are. I'm not thinking about the individual instruments. I'm just going, this music. makes me feel a certain way and I enjoy it, right? Um, so you can just go, well, I appreciate this. This is good enough for me. I don't need to experience the live interaction of, you know, 60 people interacting with hundreds of people in the crowd in this very intimate way. And like, how much more power is there to that than, me sitting there and it blowing over the speakers, this AI creation of some piece that the quality of the sound is so good that it mimics that. And, I don't know. I think there will always be something to that, but I think it will also be less appreciated because it will be, like I said, the MP3 quality will be sufficient. Even when the MP3 quality or the digital quality was not what it was, it'll be sufficient for most people. I don't
I
know.
the core the orchestra makes me think about the separation of the sounds and the individuals in within, let's just take a mare for instance, the separation of all those versus like a computer is going to, yes, they will mimic it all, but there won't be separations within those individual items. And I guess in this these horses that I'm thinking about, it sometimes now there's bits and pieces that are just so different from each other.
Well, and you can talk about it because said, earlier, I can't even remember what we were talking about. The AI was like almost so perfect in that show.
I was
It's
like,
like, can a person even do this? Right? It's like
what
too,
us?
right? Um, so something I read, I don't, it was AI a little bit, but it was just talking about like the imperfections and the inconveniences of life is what makes life unique and personal and individual. And so much of technology tries to convenience us and it just whitewashes
But it will
our
learn.
experience
But it will learn.
in okay,
It
or
will
it will take or it will whitewash further.
won't because it'll learn that we need it. It will
Maybe.
learn the exact amount of imperfections that we need to have it feel authentic and to challenge us enough. It sucks. Well, let's not get depressed.
You're incredibly optimistic on this one.
Well, I hope I'm wrong.
Well, why do you hope you're wrong? If it's gonna happen, I hope it happens like you're saying, but I don't know that it will.
Well,
I hope
it's
you're right.
all computerized generate. It will figure the AI will still figure out how to render an experience that is still faux, or at least faux in how we define it now. But it won't whitewash it such that in the end we won't feel satisfied. It'll know how to adjust it so that we feel just the right amount of drag.
So Michelle, Corey, Jean, Julie, uh, can't remember who Rocking Horse Ranch is.
Joanne.
Joanne. Oh yes, that's the other Joanne. And Susan. Anyone else who's joined us that hasn't commented, comment now how much you get tired of us speculating on AI. Yes or no? Interesting, valuable, or just annoying?
Annoying, I'm sure. It's annoying to
I
me.
Yeah, it's annoying to me, but it's also, whatever. It's interesting.
Listen, this is here. My mom What the other day, I was at her house and she looks at me, she goes, "Stop talking about the robots." Like people cannot handle it. It's like,
Oh,
oh, this is happening. Jeannie says, even the teacher needs to be the student in order to be a better teacher. That's true. It's I'm definitely not smooth about weaving back and forth on this level. Obviously, I can show up at a buck clinic or whatever and learn. Um, uh, I've had that experience for a long time. Now I'm the student, now I'm the teacher, but this, I don't know, this feels a little bit different. Michelle, don't d- don't quote me, but I think the studs get to go out in groups together at the Spanish riding school. Yeah,
I
you.
think they do, yeah.
I would guess you're right. Why not? If you have like 500 of them, who cares? Michelle says, I use AI at work and had a lady attack me on social for making a joke about it. And it was a pretty funny joke. What do you, Michelle, like, in what way do you do? You'll have to tell me. Everyone's using anyway. Oh, I feel like it's a natural thing to want to talk about it because this is happening. We are all experiencing this, but to put our heads in the sand for as long as possible and then be shocked at it, it's like, I get it. Emily, annoying because I don't like AI, but also interesting since it's part of reality now. Yeah, it's like, listen, if I had a choice, I would not. I would be like, nah, let's skip it. Let's just skip it. Let's just stay at like, but we don't have a choice.
The other thing I miss the most, and I try to do this, is just the freedom of kids to run around, right? Like, I would ride my bike to town. My brother rode his bike to town in a bathrobe carrying a dead bird. I think I mentioned that on the show once, just to be a ridiculous idiot and say he did it once in life, right? But just like to turn Levi loose in town, and we live in a smaller town, and say, go fishing, right? And that feels like some people are not comfortable with that. It's like, I miss that part where you didn't have the distraction of the device. You weren't like, God dang, these kids are just warping their brains by getting sucked into this device rather than just being kids. And then the freedom to be like, it's not safe everywhere, but it's safer than we imagine a lot of places if you don't obsess over the possibility of the worst case, which I'm not denying the possibility of the worst case, but to be like, go run around, be kids, interact with all the kids in the neighborhood, and just I don't hear from you for the whole day, and then you just show up at dinner or whatever. So
I know it.
that's the part I think I mourn the most.
Mhm. No question. Corey says it's depressing when it comes to things like art and music and AI because creativity and the creative process are so valuable for people. Good point. Yeah. I mean, that's a choice, I feel like. Don't you guys think it's like it's a choice to um, use AI to express yourself versus um learning it old school. I would imagine that people will make those choices, but for instance, like for me to render something like the ballerina, I just needed to get an idea across to you guys, and it wasn't like I was going to spend my whole life figuring out how to do that without and that's the whole thing. It's like it's going to give us stuff we anyway. Yeah, hopefully people will still play music. We all need to commit to buying one more concert ticket this year and going. But think about it, Michael, like the safety thing. I mean, we used to just go to the concerts.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the part I miss.
I know it. Or even just going anyway, yes. Michelle says,
Six, 16 years old, driving to Minneapolis, going to a show downtown. We just like look out for one another, or take my parents' RV and drive across the country to go to a music festival. Run the top of the RV into an overpass because we weren't paying attention to how low it was. My aunts and uncles talking about growing up on the farm and riding their tricycles off the roof into a pile of hay. I mean, like, just stupid, dangerous stuff that like you survive, and it's like the stuff of childhood, right? Going out in the pasture and almost getting run over by a cow because you didn't know enough and you're a city kid, and but it wasn't like, "Oh, be careful out there," and everything, like, "Don't do this, don't do that." You know?
Calib
Whatever.
yeah,
What's that?
calibrations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle says, I use it to run my work papers through. It's far from perfect and won't replace me, but can, it can help.
It can help.
I would agree with that for sure. Both of those things. I just think it's getting better every day. I asked ChatGPT to help with my logo and spit out an image of Otto's silhouette in high heels. Yeah, that's awesome. I know. What was I asking it yesterday? Last night, I was like, what was the recorded high in Sheridan today? I use Grok less than chat, but anyway, what? And it was like 70 degrees. I'm like, what? I said, I'm pretty sure you're not right about that. And then I was like, because it was 45 or something like that, you know. And I was like, oh, you're thinking the recorded, like the record high, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about today's recorded high. But we had to go back and forth a few times. Of course, I could have just typed it in, but then finally I uploaded a picture of the weather for it, you know, and then it laughs. It chuckled like the actual phone was chuckling. Ah, ha, 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 you got me. Yes, I didn't have that right. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, holy shit. And then like this is just going to keep going. I think that's the thing that is hard to wrap your brain around is if this whole deal is compounding, you know, the speed, it's like I don't even know how to deal with it. So there's something about getting lost in the horses that is
Yeah.
very therapeutic right now.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
So this is the part that's most terrifying for me, Michelle, is um, to think that at a certain point it's monetized and only a certain number of people have access, and then it really creates a greater divide. That's the
And
part that really sucks in my mind.
that's the race. That's why we're going to have to do our best to support the open source platforms and not, for instance, chat. You guys know chat is OpenAI. OpenAI was created by Sam Altman and Elon Musk. It was supposed to be a nonprofit. Elon's big stated thing is that the AI cannot be programmed to lie. It has to be truth. That has to be the first most important thing. And it all should be open source. I don't remember the exact story, but whatever. Sam Altman now owns OpenAI along with shareholders, and it is absolutely for profit. It is for maximum profit. It has an agenda, and I think at one point there was some discussion about making it honest to humans. I can't actually, this might have been Gemini, but I'm just saying these are some of the conversations that these guys that are in charge of programming and running these different LLMs. And this is just a story, and try to just listen to the story itself because regardless of the individuals, it matters. But the person questioning the head of programming this and how we're moving this LLM forward, saying that humans and how important this is going to be, that the interaction between human, well, that person was being accused of being a speciesist. Okay, so we have to have some perspective here that if we are going to be looked out for, we have to be very careful as to how the AI gets trained. And right now, it's very important. And each one of us can help shape that. First of all, by not putting our head in the sand and caring about what we support. And that's all we can do is be like, look, it matters what we put into this so that when it's expounded over and over again, first of all, it doesn't get cut off from, you know, and only to the for profit people. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. So
So and then you, yeah. My brain goes in so many different directions.
But I
So
mean,
when you talk about access and it being shaped, right, right now, like it's being shaped by those who have access, and it's also being shaped by a very much by a young generation that doesn't know a lot, doesn't have a lot of life experience to feed into it. That's it's like a self-training thing because you have these 20 something year olds that are programming it based on what they've learned from or you know f- fed into it, and it's processed through and fed back to them, and it's like this vicious loop of, not to despair, there's like plenty of young people that are more brilliant than I and are embracing technology and creativity and all that in ways that I don't, but they also, you have a bunch of inexperienced idiots also like informing it as opposed to a generations and generations of experience feeding their influence in there and their priorities and their values, and not to mention other cultures and
and that's
you
where I feel like it is valuable to talk about it, because if all the boomers in all the land except for like three don't want to talk about it, don't want to participate, don't want to feed into it, well then it's like, okay, so we're seriously saying we're just going to leave it to a handful of people?
mhm.
So
And so what's your social responsibility more, that or caring for someone who's in need?
does it is it mutually exclusive?
It's not, but one only has a limited amount of time and resources.
Yeah, I guess my thought lately is just that I don't think it's a benefit to put our head in the sand. We don't have to obsess over it, but I think that being so afraid to talk about it is not a good. Hypothetically, if we could avoid it forever, that might be a reasonable strategy,
Yeah.
but we cannot.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I am saying though that the degree to which someone, like, say when you say an investment, like
Mm, yeah.
how what is your value as to how much you're going to invest in that as an inevitable but also a speculative, like where is this going and what is it doing, like you can imagine a lot, and you probably it's beyond your imagination as to what it's going to do and how it's going to change things and how life will be different and all of that. But if or you're in survival mode, right? Life has you by the hair right now and is dragging you through the mud. You're not there feeding into AI or even caring for anyone else. You're right now the one that needs the support of someone else. So I mean, it's like I don't know. Just the whole thing makes my skin crawl. I'm not saying I'm gonna stick my head in the hand and or my head in the sand, but you know,
It's so hard because it's like, well, should you pay attention to AI or should you help somebody out? It's like, well, yeah, the problem is that the loop is, if you work on the AI and robotics and all of that, you could help a fleet of people compared to the one person, you
but
know,
you could also help a fleet of people by investing in education. And
more than if you were to train the AI.
I, I don't know if before we had the AI doing its whole number on us, if there was more focus on education than, you know, self-centeredness and profit.
Yeah. I know it's a lot to it's a lot to think about, and I don't want to think about it all the time. Um, but it just comes up just because we are interfacing with it. I guess that's
Yeah.
the bottom line, right? Is um I mean, I was just happily watching a show with Kip last night, and all of a sudden we're like, We weren't trying to obsess over it, right? But it
Mhm.
it did come up. You do notice, and we are comparing. So I I hope we can focus on the good things, but we all have to care about how it gets trained because we want to put the good things about humans into it. That's our only hope. Obi-Wan Kenobi,
So,
you're my only hope. That is our only hope, is to put the good things
but
in.
how often do the good no, sorry. Let's stop. How
Okay.
often do the good things about humanity prevail in the face of the selfishness of the powerful,
Yeah.
squelching the good things in humanity for personal gain?
The only thing is, the AI doesn't care about personal gain unless we tell it to care about that. So hypothetically,
But who's building it?
I know.
You
This,
already said it.
well, there's good
And
people.
who's monetizing it?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're all bad. There's plenty that have good intentions, but money and power and all kinds of things take you in a lot of directions. And when you have money and power, you can have greater influence toward money and power. I
Yes.
mean, that's like human history. That's history.
Hypothetically, if
Hypothetically,
happen, this could be the great equalizer. But not if everyone's like la 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 la. You know, then it's like, oh yeah, it's just gonna be shaped by pay our $20 a month and
um, could be
$1 trillion company.
could
A
be th-
trillion.
could be the equalizer.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it does. That's the one thing we could just say if we want to wrap the show. It is possible that we could have people get excited about training and hypothetically have been raised by really good humans that are interested in training the AI, and if we get ahead of the game, then that is what will compound. If evil gets added in,
I was
then that
gonna
would.
say hypothetically, the absolute reverse could happen. Which
Well,
is more
that,
likely?
that is for sure.
Which is
That
more likely?
Well, we'll see.
Sorry to be the bleak one today.
Both, the only thing is, both sides are going to want humanity to survive, most likely, and the AI is going to want humanity to survive. So then it comes down to like which is going to be the best. I know.
Who's thinking long range and who's thinking personal gain for the personal moment?
I don't know. We're gonna have to find
If
out.
if I only live for 80 years and my interest is in those 80 years and not the survival of humanity, is am I interested in the survival of humanity?
If you have children.
Therefore is the AI interested in the survival of humanity? Okay, we can stop now. There are potentially great outcomes and there are potentially awful outcomes. Do
Agree.
you want to be realistic,
And
or do you want to be realistic or believe in a utopia?
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if
Okay. But yes, I'm being
I
extreme in saying that. But
are at a place where either outcome is possible. That is what I think. Then my other note would be, I do not think that the positive outcome is served by people going like
yeah,
that. I
I got you on that.
pretty sure
Back to the little filly. I think Kelly was right on, and everyone kind of saw it. There is a critical moment right there where this could go either direction. It
that
could snowball into awfulness. Bring it back to the horses. It could snowball into awfulness very, very easily, and potentially with good intentions. Or it could be shaped up depending on what's fed into it. But how much does, and then I'll go back into the theorizing, how much does your personal experience, your skill, your life experience, your values, your care for the horse, your selfish gain, interest in selfish gain, your self-control, your patience or impatience take its effect on that living being, AI not being a living being, but having its growth in a positive or negative direction, having huge effects upon millions of human beings, living beings, humans or otherwise. So, anyway, there you go. Tied it back to the horsemanship. Yay for me.
Harvard. Wow, that's
Um,
impressive. Yep. Okay. Well, I cannot improve on that. And thanks everybody for being with us today.
one of the longer shows we've ever done.
I think very constructive.
I think so too.
All
I'm a
right.
half hour late for what I was supposed to be on to next, so I should go.
Well, you guys next Thursday morning for a super short Thanksgiving show. Yep.
Yep.
We'll pop in to say hi and happy Thanksgiving. And then that'll be it. So we'll see you guys next Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
8:30 Central.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.